Thank you so very much for allowing me to speak tonight. All my life I've worked with children. I'm a retired 7th grade school teacher, and in my first years of teaching, I thought, boy, I'm going to turn out some real scholars. They're going to learn every skill that any child should ever want to know. But you know, as I grew a little bit and I became older and more experienced and had children of my own, I thought, you know, there must be some other things I should be working on with these children. I should be trying to teach them that they need to have a fulfilling life. And the way that you do that is not always through academics, but you need to learn how to be kind to people, and you need to learn to have a servant's heart. Well, this brought me in contact with the Ronald McDonald House, because I thought, what can I do to help these children learn this? And I thought, you know, we could have a fundraiser, and we could give the money to a nonprofit organization in Forsyth County. So I asked my students, because I wanted them to be really involved, do you have an organization you would like us to support? And one of my little girls raised her hand and she said, yes, Ms. Reese, could we do the Ronald McDonald House? And I thought, well, I don't know much about the Ronald McDonald House, so tell me why you want to support them. She told me that when she was younger, she had had cancer in her eye, and she had spent 3 months at the Ronald McDonald House in Philadelphia. I thought, this sounds like a really awesome organization. I've got to find out more about it. So that afternoon, I went down into the office. You can tell how long ago that was. We didn't have phones in our room then, nor did we have cell phones. But I went down into the office and I called over to the Ronald McDonald House, and they put me in touch with Nancy Spall. Nancy invited me to come over and take a tour of the Ronald McDonald House. Well, Nancy and that tour made me know that that was the right organization for us to support. Now, the next thing was I had to find something for us to sell. Well, I found t-shirts. 7th graders love t-shirts. These were very colorful, pretty t-shirts. They had imprinted pictures of animals that were becoming extinct. And so we could sell those t-shirts for $10 each, and we would get $5 profit. So I talked to Nancy, and we said, you know, we need a little incentive for these kids, but we don't want to take away from the profits we're going to give to the Ronald McDonald House. So she suggested, wonder if my principal would let me bring those students who sold 10 t-shirts over for a tour of the Ronald McDonald House. And he said, yes, he would let us do that. Well, Nancy sweetened that pot even more because she got in touch with the manager and the owner of the Ronald McDonald restaurant up in Thruway Shopping Center. And they agreed to give each one of those students who sold 10 t-shirts a cheeseburger, an order of French fries, and a milkshake. It doesn't get any better when you're in the 7th grade. You get to miss a half day of school, and you get to have McDonald's for lunch. I even had teachers who were volunteering to go. The principal said no, can't allow that. However, my sweet husband John, he took a half day's vacation every year, and he would meet me over at the Ronald McDonald House with these kids on the bus, and he would be our official photographer as we gave Nancy the check of the proceeds. And over the next 12 years, my students raised $28,500 for the Ronald McDonald House. After I retired, I began having time that I could actually physically go and volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House. In 2008, John joined me in volunteering, and every Wednesday since then, we have volunteered in the Forsyth Family Room. Now, when we first began volunteering there, we were only serving parents and families of the children in the NICU. NICU babies are very near and dear to our hearts because our daughter was a preemie. So we were able to meet these young parents, and they were having the worst crisis in their entire life. They had this little baby that might weigh a pound or a pound and a few ounces, and they were just distraught. we were able to sit down with them, have a cup of coffee, give them some words of encouragement. And then as time passed and the weeks went by and they would continue to come into the family room, we'd see those tears turn into smiles as those babies grew and they finally was the happy day that they got to go home. And you know, incidentally, while we have been doing this, we have had 2 of my 4th and 7th graders who have come in as parents of babies in the NICU. And it was so fun to reconnect with them and remind them and just say, did you ever think that you would be benefiting from that organization? And of course, they didn't, as 7th graders, ever think that. My current role in the Forsyth Family Room has changed. I still volunteer on Wednesdays, but now I'm able to help with the hospitality cart. Our hospitality cart contains all sorts of snack items, and we also have toiletries. We still service parents of babies in the NICU. We go into what is now called the Family Integrated Care. It used to be pediatrics. We go up onto the antepartum floor and serve our mothers there, and then to mother a baby and get to meet new parents. It's amazing how a Kool-Aid jammer and a pack of chips will make people so happy. It's just a wonderful job. You know, there's so many stories that I could tell you about the wonderful guests I've met at the Ronald McDonald House. One of my favorite stories occurred one Thursday morning when I went over. It was the Thursday after Easter, and I went over to help do the sports shirt distribution. I went up into the main lobby, and there was a lady just sort of wandering around, and I said, "Oh, are you here to help with the sports shirt sale?" She said, "Oh, no, honey," and she began to tell me her story. Her story was that every year on the Saturday night before Easter, at their home up in Morganton, she and her husband had hosted a fish fry, and they had invited all their children and grandchildren and their neighbors. And the Saturday night before this Thursday, her son from West Virginia and his wife and their 5 children had come for that fish fry. And the little 5-year-old boy in that family had tripped, and he had pulled a pot of hot boiling grease all over his body. She went on to tell me about how they had spent 2 or 3 or 4 nights even over at Brenner, just sleeping wherever they could until they got a room in the Ronald McDonald House. And she told me they had been spending over $100 a day just for food. As time passed and that little fella came back to Brenner, I got to meet him, and he was such a delightful child. Another story that I love is the story about I was sitting at the reception desk one Tuesday morning and the doorbell rang. And I went to the door, and there was the cutest little boy there, and I assumed the young man was his father, which he was. And the little boy had $10 in his hand. He said, "This is for the Ronald McDonald House." I said, "Well, thank you." And then he went on to tell me his story. And his story was that when he was born as a preemie, and his parents stayed in our Ronald McDonald House for 3 months. They didn't have any money to pay, so they had $10 extra that day. So they brought it over to give to the Ronald McDonald House. Well, Kathy Greneau overheard that story, and she came out, saw the little fella and his dad, and she actually took them back to the room where he had stayed. And I think she sneaked him a little toy to take with him. You know, that story and so many others of our wonderful guests laid on my heart for so long, and it made me think, I want to do more for these families. What can I do? I love to cook. My friends had said to me for years, "Why don't you make a cookbook?" I knew I couldn't charge my friends for a cookbook, but I thought, you know, I could charge my friends for a cookbook and give that money to the Ronald McDonald House. In fact, I think I want to do that. So I talked to John. He was 100% in favor of our doing that. We agreed we did not want the Ronald McDonald House organization to have to foot any of the expense. So we self-published the cookbook, and that little $15 cookbook entitled Cooking with Love for the House That Love Built has raised over $40,000 for the Ronald McDonald House. I can't tell you how much I love this organization, how much I love volunteering with it. I've been volunteering in Forsyth County since I came to Wake Forest as a freshman in 1962. That's a lot of years and a lot of different organizations. And I want to tell you that without a doubt, there is no staff anywhere in Forsyth County that equals our wonderful Ronald McDonald staff. They do a fabulous job. They make our guests feel so comfortable and so welcome. And not only that, but they also are so good to the volunteers. I never volunteer that someone doesn't thank me for being there that day. And it really makes you want to volunteer more when you know you're appreciated. I also want to say thank you to you donors. I don't know how the house would manage if we didn't have wonderful people who were willing to donate. It takes 22 staff members. It takes a plethora of volunteers to make this organization work 365 days a year. I want to thank you so much for your gifts, because it is because of your generosity that I'm able to receive one of the greatest blessings of my life, which is volunteering for the Ronald McDonald Charities of the Piedmont Triad. Thank you.